I'm sure the developers were smoking something when they came up with the idea of the New Zealand story. You play as a blue sneaker-wearing Kiwi going under the name of Tiki, who's out to rescue his girl that's been kidnapped by a large blue leopard seal. Yep, that's odd. Throughout the game you must make your way through the maze-like stages, fighting off all manner of crazy enemies ranging from hermit crabs to bears on floating rocks. Or at least that's what they look like to me. The first port we're going to take a look at is for the PC Engine. Now while this looks pretty nice, you'll be surprised to know that it's not actually such a great port. While the controls are tight enough, the game looks washed out, which is a real shame considering the PC Engine's colour capabilities. The audio is also a little weak, and the game is missing the arcade intro and in between level map screens. This is not to say the PC Engine port is bad, not at all. It could have been so much better though. Now this is a very pleasant surprise. The Master System port actually features the cut intro from the Mega Drive port, but even includes the map screens which the Mega Drive port does not have. Graphically it's amazing too. It looks extremely good for an 8-bit port, and I'd even say it puts the PC Engine version to shame in some areas. However, there are quite a lot of warps which are missing in this version of the game, along with a few vehicles and some enemy types. Bonus areas have also been removed along with all bonus area icons. Still, despite these issues, this is definitely a game Master System owners should buy. Strangely, the Mega Drive version of the New Zealand Story is based upon the original Japanese test version. As a result, a lot of the levels are in a different order or completely different from what you may be used to. The game is pretty close to the arcade version in terms of looks and sound, but is missing the full arcade introduction, where the Kiwis can be seen playing around before being chased by the blue leopard seal, or walrus as it was known in the European home ports. Known as Kiwi Craze in the US, the Famicom or NES port was developed by Software Creations. The music is now all funky, but what on earth happened to the colour graphics? It's hideous and really shows the difference between the graphical powers of the Famicom and the Master System. Still, unlike the Master System port, this version does feature most of the warps. Featuring the arcade introduction screen and very nice graphics, this Amiga port has a lot going for it, but it does suffer from the one button control issue, like every European home computer port. The Japanese home computer ports on the FM Towns and Sharp X68000 don't, however. Still, if you don't mind having to push up to jump and having the joystick icon being completely pointless since you push up to fly the vehicles anyway in this version, then you'll love this Amiga port. A very good port indeed. What on earth happened to Tiki the Kiwi in this C64 port? It looks completely different. That's the least of our worries though. This C64 port is horrible to play. The controls are very slippery and there's some questionable collision detection in there. Definitely a bad port, but not the worst. With very slightly different audio and graphics, this FM Towers port is excellent. Easily better than the Mega Drive version and leagues ahead of the European home computer ports, but is it the best home version out there that's not emulated? In 2007, Taito actually developed a new version of the New Zealand Story for the Nintendo DS. In Japan it was simply known as the New Zealand Story DS, while in the West it was renamed to the New Zealand Story Revolution. What we have is a sort of remix version of the original game, with all new looking graphics and unwanted touchscreen and dual screen features added. Actually, some of the new features are quite nice ideas, such as trying to spot the difference between the top and bottom screen images. However, they don't really add anything to the gameplay, making them seem more of a chore than anything else. What a load of rubbish this is. The Amstrad CPC port of the New Zealand Story not only looks awful but plays like a soggy turd in a sock. It's so slow and unresponsive that I just couldn't be bothered to even try and reach the first world's boss. A truly awful port if ever there was one. Looking just as bad as the Amstrad game or worse depending on your view, this may seem like another awful port. In reality, it's not too bad. The controls are responsive enough, although the camera seems to be stuck on a slow motion rubber band, which can be annoying at times. Another good European home computer port and another Atari ST game that arguably could be better looking than its Amiga counterpart. Just like the Amiga version, this ST port suffers from having to push up to jump, but apart from that, it's actually a very good port. Back when most people were playing inferior home ports of the New Zealand Story, the Japanese were playing what could be considered as an arcade perfect version. That is, if they could afford a Sharp X68000 computer. Like so many X68000 ports, this is very close to the original arcade game and even features a choice of screen resolutions.